And I feel like that actually is a perfect segue, just to talk about the community involvement that I think of, and then also just the fact that I make gigantic sculptures.
Welcome to What's My Thesis. I'm Javier Proenza, and today my guest is Liz Stringer. Liz, you are about to feed us at a pizza party on tomorrow at DMST Atelier. You're part of that whole UCI crew, right?
Yes. UCI, I guess that would be my affiliation. But
well, I mean, I don't know that, because I think Franny didn't go to UCI, but I just meant like you're friends with like your art clique. One of the things that I love about doing this is that I see the matrix, and I'm like, oh, these people know each other, and these people know each other.
No, and I would say that's the secondary wave. So my good friends, and then also my partner, Kim Garcia and Reinhard Selvik, who is in the show with John Plipchuk.
Wait, your partner is Reinhard, not Kim Garcia.
No.
Because you said my partner, Kim Garcia.
Oh, no.
She's already art wed to Amy McKay.
I know. They have a beautiful relationship. But so I actually met Kim and Reinhard at UCSD during my undergrad.
Okay, so you guys like go even farther back.
A little bit, yeah. But I met Kim during a performance art class. Yeah.
Oh, so that's how they know the Harvest and Gather people. That's how she knows.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's why they showed. I'm always like, how do these guys know each other that they're showing her stuff? You know, I was like, yeah. No, it's really cool. It's really interesting. Here's something funny that happened to me with Reinhardt. I met you at Von Zimmer.
Yes.
And I was like, I think I was hugging someone, and I was like, I recognized you, and I was like, hey, I know you. And I think that you didn't know that it was like that I was the podcaster person, because I guess you hadn't, but you have been, I think even with my first account, Surgeon Hands has been in my zeitgeist. One of those catchy names, you know. So I was like, oh, this person, and then I lost my account, and somehow you ended up back following me again. Sometimes
I feel like you know more people through their like Instagram handle than actually like their actual name. So it's like, oh fuck, I know that your name is Surgeon Hands, but what?
Yeah, no, I did, for the longest time I didn't know you were Liz. I just knew you as Surgeon Hands. And we were talking before, it's very funny, you get that comes from like compliments from family members.
Oh yeah. So what I was gonna say was both of my parents are like doctors, and their grandparents were also somewhat in the medical field. But when we would go to these like sort of medical conferences or like medical like travel things that my dad or my mom would participate in.
I'm picturing Florida.
No, weirdly enough, Lake Arrowhead.
Oh, okay. It's still, it's like, hey, let's do a conference, but also in a nice place.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, my uncle's a cardiologist.
Yeah, no, and so when this would happen, surgeons would come up and sort of compliment my hands, asking sort of what I wanted to be in life, and they would say that, it has like they're very small, so they can actually reach into small cavity spaces, but they have a huge palm to finger ratio.
Whoa.
So they actually have better grip strength and like torque than some other more delicate hands.
Oh my God. So this is like, because it's in tight spaces and you need to be able to like
kind of maneuver or have the strength to like I would say
Indian
surgery.
Oh, I guess that's not an appropriate.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. But I would say it's like, you know, just surgeon or surgery, especially when it comes to like either like knee replacement, joint replacement, all those things, pretty brutal.
I helped my mom through that. My mom recently, my sibling was there to get to hang out. Mm-hmm. Let's not divulge other people's private business. Mm-hmm. and they were like doing a bunch of stuff, you know, and I was like, why don't we do a bunch of stuff when I'm there? And I was like, the last time I was there, she had a knee replacement. And before that, she had a bum knee.
No, it's...
And now,
it's brutal. And so like, so anyways, I was like thinking at the time when I was really young that I was going to go into the medical field. And so I was like, this is great. While I was at UCSD though, I basically realized my empathy skills are just like too crazy to enter into a hospital system where my dad was also diagnosed with cancer, so that also was rough. Being on the other side of that. So anyways, I did this performance in undergrad that was talking about the fact that I have these like sort of like perfect surgery hands, but now that I'm sort of like floundering that. So I guess going into ceramics was the substitute for that.
So you're a ceramicist, that's how you identify primarily?
I would say I identify mostly as a sculptor and installation artist, but I use ceramics as the sort of primary tool or material.
So you're not traditionalist, or discipline. How would you say that? You're not like married to a discipline.
Yeah, I would say, yeah, it's more
I was going to say disciplinarian, but that doesn't make sense.
That's a little bit on the other side of that. Disciplinarian seems a little bit more harsh or severe.
Yeah, severe towards your ceramics. That's cool. I love ceramics. My mom was or is a ceramicist, and she would take me as a kid to like what I used to think. I don't know. I'm very proud of myself for my ability to go to ceramics, like really old school, like just utilitarian ceramics, and like love it, you know?
Totally. And to be fair, I still geek out about it because like there's just like there's so much confidence in some of those things that are made, that, and then the glaze is so good, and the chance of it all is just so, it's like, it is magic.
Yeah. And what's it called? The Greek stuff is also pretty cool, but I'm not even talking about like stuff that had narratives on them. I'm just talking about like straight up, like, these are just very well made. Beautiful. I went into NPR voice. Yeah. It's definitely NPR ceramics.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, cool. So let's go get some background on you. Yeah. My intro question is, well, first, I guess I already asked what kind of art you make or how you identify as an artist. First, earliest memories before you had the pressure of squandering your talents in surgery and making them art. Your first inklings as far back as you can remember of you being like, you know what, it makes sense. I can see the path there. And then the moment where you're like, oh no, if I become a surgeon, I'm going to be sad because I can't make art.
Actually, so I guess there were two instances. I did have like the really great privilege in my childhood to travel a lot. And so like there would be these like really beautiful, mystical, magical experiences within like Gothic churches or cathedrals.
Where at?
Mostly in Rome. I remember having this experience with Bernini. I can't remember the chapel's name, but it's the Saint Teresa on Fire or Saint Teresa in Ecstasy. And I just remember that being like such a profound experience. And I was always sort of an artistic child where I was like, how can I like do this but biologically? And I loved science at the same time. Like I loved looking at my dad's like medical, like old school, like 1960s.
What's your dad's specific?
He is a pulmonologist that specializes in ICU care and research, like pulmonology, like COPD.
I used to work at a hospital that was specified. It's like a lot of old people.
Yeah.
Geriatric care. Yeah.
Not the nicest term, but it also is as...
Isn't it medical though? It's not like bigoted.
Yeah. No, it's just, I feel like a lot of geriatric people don't like to be called geriatric because whatever. My cousin's husband, I don't know what that makes him to me. He calls people Jerry's. I know, it's really cute.
But he tells me it's I was like, why? And he was like, oh yeah, because I'm calling you old.
Yeah, pretty much. And so, and also too, I think like when we think about our bodies aging or like just sort of getting through all of those different stages of how our bodies are changing too, it's a very uncomfortable place to be for a lot of people. So okay, wait. So then there was those textbooks, but basically, I wouldn't say it was until college I realized really specifically that I was not meant to be in like a doctor or some sort of medical professional.
You said something about empathy?
I realized it was really difficult to be on the other side as a patient. Like basically I'd grown up with all these like very intense, kind of brutal, like dinner table conversations that again wasn't like giving any information away. It would just be like, oh yeah, we had people dying or like people having like really weird medical situations that were kind of like interesting between my parents or even my brother as he's like moved in to become a doctor as well. But so like if you can imagine, we're talking blood, we're talking guts at the dinner table. And so I was like, oh, I can handle this. And then as soon as my dad actually was diagnosed with leukemia, it became this sort of like, oh, I don't know. This is really hard to be in the waiting room. This is really hard to be.
That's like fucking heavy cancer too.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
That's the blood cancer one.
Yes.
Yeah. I've known a few people that have died from that.
Oh yeah.
Over the years. I had a teacher, I had a friend, shout out to Pabon.
Yeah.
And like that shit is fast too. How's he doing?
Oh, he's great. He's in remission. Again, and this is sort of the interesting sort of like, because he was a doctor, he knew the best care. He knew how to catch it. He caught it very early.
So he went with like no chemo. Where was it that what's his name went that Andy Warhol went?
Oh no, I would definitely not recommend going there. My dad definitely had chemo. Several rounds actually, and so yeah, it was just one of those things where I think it put it a lot in perspective. It also really like, I was already having, well, this was actually my first quarter of college. So it was also like really right in the critical moment of like sort of deciding what you wanted to be. So I decided like, I realized it wasn't the right thing, but then there was this sort of question, well, if it's not this industry that actually is pretty like consistent, like it has a good sort of direction or trajectory for a family or like a really normal life, like what does that look like? And so I've always been struggling, or I would say I struggled in college sort of thinking about like, how can I make this art system work? I was like, oh, should I be an illustrator? Should I be a medical illustrator? Should I be...
and then you realized you were in art school and no one had that answer for you, or no one could fucking help you at all.
No, and it was really about like, how bad do you want this? What do you want out of this? It's also like, do you want to just make art for the rest of your life, or do you actually want to participate in a community and have those dialogues and conversations? So like, that was also crazy. I also went on the other side of it. I was a museum educator for a while at the Museum of Contemporary Art, San Diego.
Okay.
And then after that, I became a middle school and high school art educator, where I taught ceramics and just art in general. And so it was also like, while I was trying to determine whether I wanted to be an artist, I also had like all of these sort of surrounding questions that would always constantly tell you like, okay, well, what's the value of art? What is the reason art should be in society?
It's a weird thing to go to school for. I definitely like as the, as I have shed the insecurities over time. I've been doing this podcast long enough that no one even really cares that I don't have an MFA.
Yeah.
It never comes up, because I'm not applying for teaching jobs. So
No.
That's like literally the only place that people care. But it's a weird thing, and it speaks to kind of why I framed the question of like, you can't not do it or you won't be happy, because you're literally learning how you're going to school for 4 years to what is essentially, commercially speaking, a hobby.
Yeah.
Totally. And then there's like, so then there's a weeding out process. I feel like, the most successful artists I know made it work because they didn't come from like backgrounds like ours where, we get to travel and shit, but yeah, it is a very strange, and like, I went to school, so I'm not like at all bashing the idea, but I think that, I think that in a different time, the art educational system was maybe a little bit more like, it feels like art is irrelevant, and such like, it feels like we do these things and we love to make art and we like being around other artists and stuff like that. But in terms of like, even think about like, like Damien Hirst or, all these artists, like what is their political impact in the sense of like painting a fucking chapel? Sure. Being part of the propagandistic system in Rome.
Totally.
I don't know if you know, I grew up over there. So in Rome until I was 12. So
wow.
Yeah. So that you're like one of the few people that I've had here that is like, oh yeah, Rome was what inspired me.
Yeah.
Cause I asked the question, cause I'm like, to me, it's logical.
Yeah.
You grew up in Rome. Like how is it not all artists?
Yeah. All the expats that were just like there getting to draw beautiful figures and bodies. But I do think like I also forgot to mention I worked as assistant director to Insight, which was a nonprofit that existed between San Diego and Tijuana.
Okay, and it was like an art related thing or no?
Very much so. It's like very much responsible for all socio-political art created between the border. Some really big moments and just sort of defining what is art, what can art actually address. But I will say, as someone who like basically also for 10 years got to exist in this nonprofit realm where you're seeing so much like how art is being devalued within a current society and how hard it is to justify where art has a place within the public sphere. Yeah. Or even private sphere. We have been long devalued ever since, like, you know, culture wars, all the things. Well, it's coming.
There's some really interesting stuff. Like there's this guy, Caleb Malpin, who talks about Susan Sontag and her involvement with CIA stuff. Like it really, and it's really interesting, like how it just seems like, I don't know. Maybe it was never, maybe it's romantic to think that art was powerful at some point, you know? And that's a fair assessment, but like, I just don't I don't think that the government is scared of us.
Oh no.
And I don't know that that's always been the case, you know.
It's more in the sense that again, if you ask sort of why I think like what is the value of art within it, it's sort of this moments of like thinking about like what does it actually bring a culture? What does like how is it a phenomena that's sort of existing and floating above this culture and marking time and form and all these different components? But I don't, because basically if you think about how the public, how the government has completely just again devalued it, made it into a place where it has to do something else for society except just exist, it becomes really problematic. So until we get back to a place where it becomes more important or just a part of people's lives and everyday experiences, or it's more accessible to them also.
I think that is also like there is a desire to, okay, I'll be careful, but there is a strong desire for people to overvalue their educations.
Sure, yeah.
Because they're so indebted to it.
Yeah. Oh, also too, that is complete devaluing of the system and capitalization of that stuff. But if you think about sort of, again, what art school was doing or how people were going there to sort of exist outside of a society and have these conversations and dialogues and things like that. I do think I got that at UCI. But
well, it's just hard. In a sense, they're teaching you this form of labor rebellion, right? Like you're cutting out labor and you're saying that I will work for myself. Mm-hmm. That I think is an interesting thing, but it's not like, I don't know. I think that going back, you know, like the CIA buying and supporting Pollock and all of that, like it just seems like a lot of effort in this country was made to make it individualistic. Oh, yeah. Whereas like I've talked to some of the, you know, I've been trying to think of examples, but Israel Campos strongly, do you know him?
I do.
Yeah. Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Not personally, but
yeah. No, it's good that you know his work because it's very nice. Yeah. So he talks a lot about how the Mexican Revolution artists really influenced muralists, really influenced, you know, like I didn't even really think about muralists until I got to California and I met Mexicans, you know, like they have Rivera, they have a bunch of like big names.
Siqueiros,
yeah. So like that is a cultural collectivist approach, whereas I think we're very individualistic in the way that we're educated on art here.
Totally. And I feel like that actually is a perfect segue just to talk about the community involvement that I think of, and then also just the fact that I make gigantic sculptures that...
Oh, wow. I didn't know. What's the scale? Like, would it fit in this room?
No.
Awesome.
Yeah. Well, a couple of them would. Some are sort of like human height or my personal height, and then some are like 17 feet tall.
And by the way, this room is huge.
Yeah. So big.
I'm living large.
But also it would be fun to pack it in here. But basically when you think about collective structures and think also about the scale between sort of like the individual cellular level, which are these individual selves making up the body, and then how they can sort of coalesce and, again, kooky theory, but sort of share consciousness and build consciousness between these layers and sort of build within to these larger systems. I am really interested in like people who move in public spaces, thinking about whether that's like parades, because I built a parade float back in January. Yeah.
Of this
year. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It was sort of a reflection on public spaces in the Rose Parade.
Okay.
And
where do you store this shit?
I've made it segmented so it can all come apart, which again is part of this sort of thinking about these sort of collective systems that have like this sort of joint system between the units.
Okay.
And sort of like these grander bodies that are sort of lacing or traced through these other larger components. But yeah, for the Rose Parade, it was a real fascination with public space. How do, like, again, sort of the mythology of California. The Rose Parade is this, like, I like to call it this really strange, like, fertility ritual, because it basically was started back in 1890. And it's 100 years or more than that, but of proving that California can have a 24/7 growing cycle. And it takes place on New Year's, which is in January. So it's like really thinking to have a float system and a parade system that is entirely flowers. That again is, I guess, yeah. It's the Rose Parade. So like, again, thinking about these huge systems that have like flower floats that are again, green, lush, fertile, really thinking about sort of how that can bring prosperity to the region of Pasadena and a grander like LA.
Is that where you stay at, Pasadena?
I actually grew up in Long Beach. But it was like the Rose Parade was like a televised thing that you went to, and then afterwards you could go see the floats up close in person.
We have the Orange Bowl, so I definitely in Miami it was the Orange Bowl parade. So yeah, it's like, but it's such a weird. I'm just realizing that like those parades are all like college. Sport.
Because again, thinking about sponsorship, thinking about again how people
not paying athletes.
not paying athletes, basically having this sort of like mythical hope for these future, like the future of these people participating, and then also just like this huge public swath of groups and masses of people that are sort of coming together to believe in this thing that is being paraded in front of them. So fascinating. Yeah,
I never thought of it as like a magical ritual, but in essence it is like, it's like, or even a spirit, or I mean, I would say religious, but people wouldn't maybe not understand what I mean.
Yeah.
But like in the sense of like creating a reality through the experience of participating in that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Do you do a lot of performance, or is it just your hands inspired it?
So
does your dad ever just look at your hands and just like sigh?
Sometimes.
Wistfully.
Yeah. But there's always, again, this question, like, I think they're more worried about whether I can support myself into the future. And that's what jobs are for. But
yeah, we're so neutered artists.
Yeah.
Like collectivism. I mean, I don't know how to do it, but I guess I'm trying at least a little bit.
It's working with others. It's having those conversations. Again, I don't think, again, a lot of the work that I make is through the help of others. And so
there's nothing lonelier than being an isolated artist that doesn't ever like if I'm at the point where I have an oversaturation of art friends.
Sure, yeah.
And now I'm like, I want to talk to someone that's not part of the scene.
Yeah.
Just to have like an escape. Just mostly because of the show, not because of anything else. But yeah, like I've been through periods where I didn't know any artists, you know, like especially after having studied art. Like when I first moved out here, it took me like 4 years to find a community of artists, you know.
It's true. And I also feel like it's really important as we move into the future to also have friends that are outside of the art world. I think they will keep us grounded. And also they get to share sort of the joy or passion of what they're doing, or whether that's like their career, like a hobby. But people are weird, and people are really interested in like the randomest things. And that passion is just like so exciting.
You mean in the art world?
In the art world. And I would say even a lot of my interest is in science and scientists that are looking sort of deeper into their fields. Like back in undergrad, I did a couple collaborations with like an algae researcher, and just hearing him talk about the consciousness of like small creatures within the ocean, like again, thinking about a multitude of like per square inch, maybe there's like so many thousand of that algae, and then the way they exist together in a cubic inch of salt water, and then how that's moving in like a larger system. It becomes this question of scale that's really fascinating. And so so if you think about, like, if you look at the float, you'll see this 20 foot by 8 foot by 12 foot object. And it is very like Greco-Roman, sort of this like grotto, but it's all made of ceramic and aluminum foil. And so it's this very like shiny, futuristic object. The aluminum foil is sort of like drawn on, and each of the individual units of aluminum foil have sort of made this larger thing. So again, thinking about the collective spaces. So it's all handmade. It is all like through these like very like fast gestures of drawing or ceramic making. And then sort of how that then joins itself into this like larger organized structure. It looks both like, so I'd say it looks sort of fragile, ruinous, although it's still like with that like sort of monochrome of like shininess, it becomes sort of futuristic, or again, alluring within its own right. It's sort of this push and pull that I think is really fun.
What do you think? Because like, I mean, I've definitely had artists that have gone to study in Rome as an adult, but it sounds like you went there as a kid.
Yeah.
That's pretty impactful, especially because the culture there is so different.
Totally.
What they value is different.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably weren't aware enough to realize how often they go on strike.
Yeah, totally.
But it's
same with the French. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a very, very, very different experience. Like, what were your takeaways? Like, okay, you said something that I thought was interesting, because you're talking about your interest in science and all of that. I've lately been getting into more like ancient wisdom stuff.
Sure.
Like I've never really understood what the fucking Torah was, you know, like and I've been curious of it as like a document that kind of, and like the idea that it's a library and not a book.
Totally.
Right.
I didn't know that.
That's interesting. And in the New Testament, the idea that like Judaism was like that Christianity at first, until Paul, who some people think who wrote like a third of it.
Sure.
Some people think is like it was like a Roman spy.
Oh.
And that's kind of how why, like, because he was like devout. It's not that he didn't believe it, but it was a way of sort of like just like de-radicalizing people and making them more compatible with the empire. Okay, right? So that's like what they say about him. But it's really interesting, all these like things that, you know, you talked about consciousness, right? And is there any like way to scientifically study consciousness?
Ooh, they're doing so many brilliant studies at UCSD. They have like, I think Obama started the brain mapping thing, and then Ramachandran is this like incredible like researcher. He has a really great book if you ever want to read it, but that talks about consciousness and what do we lose when there's moments of like damage within a body, and again, it's sort of like these very like fluid definitions of what that means, sort of like mirroring in the body. But I wanted to go back because I think you said something really nice about like, one, thinking about sort of all these like narratives and stories that we tell ourselves through history. I think it has this like really nice grounding spot, and I think it is inherently like there, and it sort of comes up, like all of these sort of are known through our bodies or our systems, and sort of thinking about this metaphysical reality of fantasy and narrative and storytelling, and how that sort of affects the corporeal body. And so I think
Well, that's kind of one of the things that I was gonna say is that, like, yeah, art has to do a lot with observation, but I think that it lives a little bit in that metaphysical kind of space of like experiential expression, rather than, and I'm not like I say this a lot on the show is like, yeah, we're a secular society, but we're still human, so we have these weird dogmatic beliefs that have nothing to do with God. Like one of the things that I harp on a lot is like the idea of anti-racism.
Totally.
That woman came out and she basically said that she wanted to, like, I was like, oh, this is just Catholic guilt. And then she literally said that her objective was to turn racism, people's white guilt, into Catholic guilt and have them. And so the basic premise of that is that you're a sinner. Now those are systems of control. That's like, we're keeping the church, but we're getting rid of God. And I'm not like, you know what I mean?
Totally.
It's like, yeah, we're secular and fuck yeah.
Yeah.
And forget all this metaphysical shit. And that, you know, I'm going through this because people have been dying as I'm getting older, and I have questions that maybe. And there's like, you know, like in the art world, we're in this place where, we're like, oh, I lost it. But no, this idea of like, I don't know, it just feels like something, like people are lonely and something's missing.
Oh, totally.
Oh, okay. In the art world, like, the idea that like art history is linear, right? Like we have modernism and then we have postmodernism, and now something else is coming. Totally. And I think that was kind of the thinking when I was in school back in like 2008 I graduated, or 2007, and I think that, you know, that's been kind of dismantled, and like people are doing modernism again, even though you could argue whether it's modernism in the context now.
Yeah.
But the idea that like we've reached this pinnacle of brilliance in society, and that we're the most advanced understanding of how the universe works.
Oh God, yeah.
You know, like that is this weird thing that, and I think that that's like where loneliness is, where my loneliness is coming from, in terms of like, like, if this is it fucking sucks.
Totally sucks. And I think it depends on different spiritualities, but every researcher that I've ever talked to usually believes in a higher power. It's one of those things where they have this like very
science
like
comes out of that.
Yeah, and I think that's lost when you dilute it through this like extremely regimented system of papers. Like everyone sort of
bureaucratic.
thinks, it's extremely bureaucratic. It's the way to get funding. But I wanted to also go back to, it's like,
this is fun, by the way. This is less an interview and more conversation.
This is more of a conversation, yes. But even thinking about like American secularism, I don't even think exists, because we're just completely founded on Puritan and puritanical values. And
as someone who grew up in the most fucking eternal city, like to me that shit is so sterile.
Yes. Oh, totally.
Sterile, repressive. And I see that in the secularism, a lot of like that waspiness kind of like, you know, like that politeness.
Oh,
and that like non-confrontationalness.
Sure. Yeah. And it's one of those things where I think it is under the illusion of secular, but it has very, again, like when we're thinking about American history and sort of the values that it was founded on, completely different than like French Enlightenment ideals, which again, when they think about pure secular, like, and again, where the Enlightenment was also happening hand in hand with a lot of like science and what we describe it as, or alchemy and things like that. It's completely different. And so, sorry, I was going to go back to your point about Roman, like what about Rome? It has this like really incredible understanding that like the body is something to be engaged with. And so there's this like beautiful... Everything
is scaled to dwarf you and inspire awe in you. That doesn't exist here.
Not well, I would say. And I don't take a lot of trips to churches in America, so it's one of those things where I think there was always a question
but that shit comes from Spanish.
It's true. It's very true. The Baroque, it's like so much like the ideal of like, what does it mean to be a sensual body within this like dealing with the metaphysical plane of spiritualism. And so like it when you think about corporeal bodies, when you think about things that are like disintegrating before our very eyes, and sort of, I find a lot of piece and connection between the fact that we are all very connected. We are very leaky sort of things. And so when you think about the connections between like one to one, whether that's like a cell to a cell, or even just like me to like a tree, or even like to nature. And again, what is nature? We can go into that, but there's this moment where I think there's a possibility to understand our connection through scale. And so like a lot of the larger things that I'm building are trying to get the human body in front of something that's confronting them in a different way.
Do you have any usually when I think of people that are interested in bodies in art, I think of performance, I think of dance and stuff. Do you have a background in that in any way? Have you ever explored your like the body in that sense? I was gonna say explored your body, and I was like, no,
maybe not.
Where does what's the rooting of that body? Is it the medical thing? It sounds like it might be.
It is, and it's like looking at all these
what's
cell
inside
slides.
your guts.
Yeah, and what that looks like, and how like when you do cell slides like staining, the like sort of beauty and just like it's like a sense of awe when you actually look at something on a different scale. Like you're blowing up this thing. But I don't have a background in performance art. There are artists that do it way better. I might be moving into that because again, I like the idea of bodies sort of surrounding it, but
you're not a dancer.
Awkward. I do believe. No, I'm not a dancer.
Not even at a club.
Oh yeah, I could do that. But but I would say more of an athlete in the sense that I think also a lot of athletes have this like.
So you play. What was it? That's a good point. Yeah. What's the sport?
Right now it's cycling. I did soccer also for.
What position? I felt like you might be defense.
Yeah.
Okay. Were you quick?
Yeah, I was actually pretty quick.
Did you guys play with tackles?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. We played. Yeah. But
you guys could still head the ball. You can't head the ball anymore in youth soccer.
No. And then and so it was soccer, and then I moved to badminton, and then now it's cycling. So it's one of those things where it just like has gone through all of the different ranges of middle class sports participation.
I'm sorry for scoffing at badminton because it's not a real sport compared to soccer or cycling.
Oh boy.
I know. No, that shuttlecock is deceptive.
That, and I was going to say it's actually the number 2 sport played in the world.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
After soccer?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, so you're more plugged in than me.
Mostly because, again...
I'm not an internationalist.
But soccer as well. But
I was talking to Franny about the WNBA, and she was saying, like, the frustrations, because there's always politics going on that, like...
Totally.
And I was like, oh, just be glad you guys don't make that much money because it just gets so corrupt.
I would say so. But also like the questions again of
like, have you ever watched a World Cup?
Oh,
like,
yeah.
South Korea gets to the semifinals when they hosted. Fuck off.
Yeah. No, it's so true. There's so much like, again, question of scale. When you think also about these athletes that are being paid so much money to put their bodies on the line or just even like entertain. What does that mean? There's so much interesting.
Yeah, and the CTE, because I mean that's a problem in soccer too. There've been like Taylor Twellman had to retire because of concussions. Concussions
constantly rip joints, which sometimes are almost arguably worse than breaking bones. Like it's so.
Now I just want to talk soccer.
No, yeah, but just thinking about the damage that these bodies.
Did you have a huge injury at some point?
No,
I didn't get one. I didn't have a bad knee injury until I was in my 30s.
Yeah, which again. Use, disuse, repair.
This guy was an asshole and he kicked me really hard. And I was limping and I should have like tried to get some help. Yeah. Now when I land on my left leg, sometimes I'm like, ooh.
Yeah.
No. It's tender.
Yeah, it is tender. I crunched my knee one time during a rollerblading accident. So,
oh my God, It must have been the 90s.
Yeah, it's 2000s. But sorry, where were we going with this? It was more the, when you think about this sort of like embodiment, this sort of like awareness of where the body is. I'm very fascinated about that, especially when making, again, these larger sculptures that can sort of, they're not really working in front of you. It's really about working in space. And so there's that component. I'm also more interested in the narrative component because my thesis show, it was called The Showings, which was...
When was this?
This was in 2024. So it was very recent.
Oh, you just graduated.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I had a long time outside of grad school where I was deciding again...
whether or not you wanted to fucking jump in.
Yeah, and I had a near-death experience that then led me to like, basically like, no, I really want this. And
why didn't you lead with that? Talk about embodiment. Did you leave your body?
It happened so fast. It was one of those things. I was hit by a car.
And you weren't in one?
No, I was not.
Okay.
I was in a protest. So,
wow. What were you protesting? Maybe you deserved it.
Probably not.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. It was the Black Lives Matter protest down in so basically in a suburb of San Diego, I was hit by a car.
Damn, yo, that's crazy.
Yeah, they were not happy.
I'm sorry for making light of it.
That's okay. It was one of those really tense times. I thinking about aggression and sort of what, again, the mass or the multitude of people.
So this was intentional. It sounds like
it was.
Was there like a prosecution? Did you get the license plate?
No, they drove off.
Oh, fuck,
yeah.
man.
So it was one of those things where I was accelerating on the hood of a car and then I was thrown off of it because they were turning and I decided to let go instead of stay on top of it. And it was the craziest thing. I just like slid across the pavement. Yeah. So again.
But did you didn't like check out near-death experience? You just came very close to dying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that
you weren't like in a hospital bed? Like
no.
it wouldn't qualify as that NDE experience technically? Or is I don't actually know. This is
I don't know either. It's one of those things where I had like,
you didn't see tunnels and have your life flash before your eyes. You just thought you were going to die for like really legitimately had a reason to think that you were going to die.
Yes. And scraped completely, ankles and knees like swollen. So it was one of those things where, again, it's not a lot of things that I share, but it basically prompted me to basically think about what am I doing with my life? What do I want to do? If it is so impermanent, and so precious. Like what are we doing? Like, what are we doing here? Let's level up.
That's interesting. That sounds like a little bit of self-grief, which I think we all kind of do, whether or not we're aware of it.
Totally.
Like I think that like part of life is just grieving the fact that we're going to die.
Yeah.
Or not thinking about it, but that's, avoidance and all of that shit.
Totally.
Because what you're saying reminds me of like my dad died and I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, yeah, this is not, No,
it's a real confrontation.
And he died, like my grandmother just died and she died of 102. My grandfather, 94.
Wow. That's amazing.
My other grandfather, 101. So I've been cocky in my diet.
Yeah.
Thinking like,
I have good genes. Yeah.
And then my dad died of a heart attack. And now I'm like, oh yeah, my cholesterol could use some work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's funny when the universe sort of reminds you that, no, when you're confronting sort of change.
You're small.
Yeah. And so again, this show that I was doing in 2024 was thinking about like, how do we notice or recognize change within our own bodies, like especially when they're changing for the better or for the worse? How do we recognize like this sort of like defensive capability of our bodies to like sort of mend each other and have armor, whether that's sort of like psychological armor or like, again, like thinking about a beetle that has armor, or like certain fish have like certain types of scales that like the military are studying now. But thinking about...
You do a lot of research.
I deep dive into it, mostly because I'm really fascinated about how the aesthetics of those images and how they're... And also, again, thinking about biopolitics, what is actually controlling these larger systems when thinking about our bodies. Because if our...
You said biopolitics?
Yes.
Okay, it took me a second to process that word.
Yeah.
Can you give us a definition?
I would say if the corporeal self is of your body and how you're feeling about your body, biopolitics is the relationships between different bodies.
Okay.
And
it's like a academic field, it sounds like.
It is. And I would say a lot of my work, it's
not like a self-coined term.
No, very much within Foucault.
Okay.
Yeah, think about Foucault, if you want to go there. But I'm thinking about it more in the sense of like, again, I am one, you are one, we are having this relationship right now. And then if we scale that up to the size of this block, of this city, of this, then this country, there's so many different levels of scale in how these things are interacting, and how the government decides to control that biopolitical life is very fascinating. But and so you get really like, you rub against that when you're talking about the medical field or when you're talking about research, because again, a lot of research is funded by the military because it's helpful for them.
No, and a lot, like, I mean, you think about the biopolitics of all the research that we inherited from a certain fascist regime that murdered a bunch of people.
Oh yeah.
You know, like that's really interesting.
Totally.
Yeah.
Japanese and the Nazis. Yeah, totally. Yeah. So, and even other extreme war crimes.
Unit 731.
Totally.
Man, you can tell when, so you know.
Yeah.
You're morbid.
Oh, I love it. It's one of those things where, oh God,
we don't have to talk about World War II, but
no.
Yeah.
But when you think about the fantasy that someone is telling themselves to engage within this like fine line between preserving or destroying life, it's really crazy. But so anyways, the sculptures that I'm making for this show that were about armor and metamorphosis and change,
you got a show coming up?
No, this was sort of in the past.
Okay.
This thesis show that I was doing, it was to talk about more about like whether I'm performing or the others, but they were arranged along this sort of story narrative arc of a medieval quest. And so for me, it was the viewer themselves that were sort of participating in this medieval quest instead of me performing that in front of them, because there had been all this labor to create these like gigantic things. And I think that, again, visible and sort of present within the surface of these like bodies and living forms that I'm sort of creating. And now it is sort of the role or the narrative arc of the viewer to sort of move through these things and interact with them as they wish. So that's where I find more fascination with how viewers are interacting with the sculptures in a 3-dimensional space or an installation than me, my body, interacting with these sculptures yet.
How does the scale, because we're talking pretty big, how does that work into the biopolitics? And it seems going back to like the golden ratio and how all those the colonnades and all of that stuff is like designed to be scaled to you in a way that's psychologically, like, I don't know, is psychologically in tuned, to get new agey about it, but basically like the golden ratio feels intuitive in a certain way, right? So that's why these buildings that are designed on the ratio of human versus building.
Totally.
You know, like, so it seems like there's an interplay there that maybe has been with you since you went to Rome.
Probably, yeah. Or other churches or cathedrals. But, and then also too, growing up in a medical household, you're like told like the body is this beautiful thing. It can be sort of dissected and pulled apart. But it also is operating on specific levels and rules of engagement, basically. Yeah. But I would say, it's funny because when you build something that big, there's a level of engineering that has to come into play because it has to hold itself up and not hurt anyone.
Crush it.
Yeah. And not hurt anyone.
That's interesting biopolitics.
Yeah. And so, again, when you're thinking about my work.
These are, sorry, just to like, not to interrupt you, but these are ceramic big things. When they get that big, is it still ceramics?
Yes, actually.
Okay, so then you also had to segment them anyway because you have to fire them.
And then also I welded them together in certain points. So like, if you can.
Oh, that's right. You welded Kim's thing. Yes. So you do have welding skills.
I do. I try every day. But like a parcel of 20 sort of ceramic things welded together, and then sort of like they're stacked on each other.
How do you weld ceramics? You just have an armature?
You have an armature, which again can get into this deeper conversation between like, what is an armature? What is a body? What is the point? Is the art object the ceramic, or is it the steel, or is it sort of merging them together? But
can you just put like a rod in ceramics and you fire it with the rod in there?
No.
Okay.
I have to weld after the fact. So you have to make the ceramic object, you biscuit, you glaze it, and then I'm welding it together usually.
But how does the clay and the metal interact? Is it like a skeleton underneath the skin of the clay?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So then when you fire the individual pieces, the metal's there, you just don't weld them until later?
Yeah, I don't weld them until later.
So you it's like it's almost like rebar.
Yes. And I will say I'm also
God,
usually...
that was hard.
No, totally. And there is some rebar in the actual thing, or I'm using just like steel rod. But I'm usually making all of these different unit components that, again, I have a sort of idea that's starting in my head. And then from there, I'm like, kind of, it'll change or shift depending on what the unit can actually do with the steel.
Who has the more exhausting practice? Because I've seen your partner's painting.
Oh yeah.
Who's most tired after a day at the fucking office?
Honestly, I will say Reinhardt usually lends a hand when helping me weld, because again, welding is sort of this dance of like, it's easier with two people.
Yeah,
and so
yeah.
Kim has played that part. Reinhardt's played that part very well. But he also does sculpture as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's, I would say it's
he's influenced somewhat by like, classical painting, I would say.
Yes.
Like he's it's not necessarily like realist, but
No.
it has the technical skills of that too.
Yeah. He was also a graffiti artist for 20 years and
okay.
still is. But
That
you
dude
can see those colors.
so Latino, and
Yeah.
his name is Reinhardt, and I'm like, is he like
He's Filipino, half Filipino. So he's
half Filipino?
It's
That
Reinhardt
makes
Revilla Selvig. Yeah.
That makes so much fucking sense because they're the same. They're like, I tell Kim that she's a Latino.
It's true.
Who doesn't speak Spanish?
Well, there is so much just thinking about Spanish influence, but into the Philippines. But what I was going to say to that was he grew up on the streets. He grew up in North Long Beach, which again, when you think about graffiti crews and how they're getting together, very diverse, very multicultural. Lot of fluidity between all these different cultures. But again, thinking about the sculpture, how is it biopolitical? I like to think of them as larger analogies for different systems. And so they're coming together as sort of these unit forms that are building into something larger, whether that, again, is like this architectural arch, whether it's a sort of like column, again, very inspired by classical architecture, and Baroque architecture, Rococo architecture. For me, that particular series was more interested in the Gothic because it has this like sort of capacity for units that are then changing and metamorphosizing in real time and how they're being sort of combined together. It's when you think about our relationship to nature, and thinking about this sort of scary aspect of like, what does it mean to be a single body? What does it mean to have a body that's falling apart on you or growing or changing or healing? And then sort of scaling that into these larger systems and how we're participating, whether that's in public space, like during, again, a parade or like a protest. All these different components, I think, are biopolitical because they are how these bodies and systems are engaging in real time.
So we talked about the float. That is sculpture, but it's also kind of postmodern in its like. Is it always postmodern in that sense? Or are you sometimes doing representational stuff? Like what objects are you making? Like describe the objects themselves.
Okay, so what you would see,
because it's different if it's like a really big dog.
No, that's totally true. And I will say,
and I'm sorry, I'm not that familiar with the work.
That's okay. I think what you're saying, again, if it was like engaging in like a Mickey Mouse or again, Disneyland
like I think
or something like
Koons
that.
makes big sculptures and they have a completely different, it sounds completely different context than what you're talking about.
And I think it was me trying to draw back on the history of like where that parade had been. And so the Rose Parade actually does have a really beautiful like documentation of it throughout the last 110 years or 130.
Damn, I didn't know that. I don't think the Orange Bowl parade is that old.
And you have to wonder like what first initiated or started these like moments of like strange propaganda to like get everyone on the same page that California is this like, again, this 24/7 growing cycle, which again is insane when you think about the soil depletion, the labor costs of people participating in.
Now I'm wondering, are like parades, like were the first parades military parades or probably festivals?
Yes. So what I was also...
They would have the triumphs, right? And then they would parade the people that... right?
The Roman sort of populace,
Yeah.
And I think when you think about a nation or a community that has, again, very specific goals, and when it reaches that goal, how does it release that tension and sort of mark that moment of achievement? But the parade was also sort of combined with my strange fantasy. So do you know the painter Jacques-Louis David? He like is very responsible for like right around the time of the French Revolution, he painted a lot of things about like civic ideals. He's very much responsible for the beginning of neoclassicism. And like,
would you say you're more of a French Enlightenment? Like that's kind of where your ideology sits.
Somewhat, I would say it's more within the beginning of the Enlightenment and Rococo. But that's a completely different. But anyway, yeah. What I was going to say was he was the propaganda minister for the Reign of Terror during the French Revolution, and so he would throw these like monthly parades to basically get people on the same page of like, again, killing the 1% of and at that point the Reign of Terror had gone completely past that. It was anyone who was associated with this like sort of upper rich, but and reshuffling of the society into a different government. But
so Reign of Terror is specifically what I'm not familiar with the term. What is that? Like, I don't know French existentialism as well as you do. But I'm interested in it because a lot of the critiques of Foucault and stuff like that, and postmodern in general, criticize it for being a departure from that. So I'm only lightly versed in this.
Totally.
As part of a broader critique on postmodernism that's Alan Sokal did with like fashionable nonsense. That's like the extent of, but it is kind of in the interest realm that I was saying, like, you know, so go ahead.
Sorry. So basically
philosophy, essentially.
The Reign of Terror was a specific year within the French Revolution, because the French Revolution wasn't just like a month and then everything was done. It was like, I would say at least 6 years of reshuffling. And so that one specific
So he was the propaganda minister of like the interim government, let's call it.
Yes. That was, again, very politically extreme, believing in sort of what ideals.
And they were against 1%. So he was responsible for propaganda for killing
and
the rich?
Yes. And
are there, where do I apply?
The guillotine. Yeah, basically. But which could be coming in our very near future. But so when you think about like the guillotine within the French Revolution, that was the Reign of Terror. And so basically publicly eliminating and making an example of
so the guillotine was the guillotine. Did they have public executions before that?
They did, but it wasn't nearly like, if you can imagine,
satisfying.
30 to 60 people dying publicly per day versus like maybe once a week, or every couple days. It was a completely different.
Because I know metaphorically people are like, oh, it's time for the guillotines, but it would seem really crazy if they just invented it for that.
No, they did.
So before the executions were non-guillotines?
They usually were not. They were usually axe executioners that then sort of developed into these more different types of like public embarrassment, public extremism. Medieval public executions are fucking gnarly if you think about like William Wallace and Braveheart and how he was like torn apart and his guts were like exploded. Yeah. So or like Vlad the Impaler, publicly impaled people,
of which Charles is an heir.
That's amazing.
He traces himself back to Muhammad, and
I would
like
love
this
that.
is all shit that I'm learning now, and I'm like this is out in the open, and people don't fucking know.
No, they don't. And so and also I think again, thinking about devaluing art, we've also devalued education and what we're taught. But
we're also getting a shit education too.
Yes. But so if you think the guillotine was actually meant to be a very like humane way to publicly execute something, but it made it almost too easy to kill someone. So it is one of those things that when it reached this like frenzy fever pitch of what are
mob mentality.
Yeah, mob mentality, the mass mentality. Again, how do you keep this like frenzied aggression that again is very angry, rightfully so. They were being mistreated. When you talk about how do you control that type of emotional like fervor.
And channel it. That's an old, like, that's kind of what I'm interested in, of like the polemics of like what gets into the Bible and what doesn't.
Totally.
The Hellenistic period and how how Hellenization was like a big factor to it.
Oh, I can imagine. Yeah.
But I mean, I think that like this stuff is a little bit more directly relevant with where we're at right now, right? Like the Enlightenment, and and you know, what is it? The Royal Society of, like, science comes from like what's Robert Hooke and those people.
Oh yeah.
In the UK that were like super fucking into God.
100% into God, and one of the first microbiologists. So if you think about us looking at, there were astronomers looking at space, there were biologists looking down into the sort of, again, microbes of water, soil, all the different things. But sorry, to complete your thought, what does this have to do with sort of the biopolitics of Parade? I sort of like weirdly mishmashed sort of what I thought the sort of fantastical float could look like during this reign of terror, and mishmashed it with, again, this sort of more Greco-Roman style part of like that had been historically done for the parade, because I was like thinking really specifically about, like, again, the mob, the multitude, controlling sort of, again, for like the basically political and public fervor. And where does that start to become interesting, or where does that start to fall apart, and how fragile actually is it?
What year was the Enlightenment?
Ooh, it was a huge period. But
like you know, like 1400s, just century. Break it down, like. So
I would say, like, again, early 1700s is when 1700s. Enlightenment, like 1690s, early 1700s, is started when it started to get kicked off. And then at that time, you actually had Rococo, which was sort of a women's world of philosophy and salons and all those things. And then it started to develop again into when we start thinking about now applying all these Enlightenment ideals to politics and questioning the value of the king, or even the religious divine right of kings. You start getting into hot water. And so then again, this like political fervor started to build. And from that, neoclassicism was born, because it was combining, again, this like political ideal, political belief, propaganda with these sort of ideals of the Enlightenment. So I could see where...
And America is 1776, right?
Yes.
So then that makes sense why all our shit in DC is neoclassical eventually.
Mm-hmm. Oh, totally.
Yeah. Interesting.
And
you're like my kind of nerd.
I like history.
No, I know, but like not a lot of people. You'd be surprised how hard it is to get people to talk about this shit.
Sometimes you're wrong, and so I think people are scared sometimes to be wrong, and so
no, I'm wrong.
Yes, at times.
When you podcast, you're wrong.
Sometimes.
No, I'm wrong all the fucking time. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I said that? Okay, whatever. Leave it in.
Yeah, and I think also knowing your roots is really important, especially, again, because they're going back to this question of like, what is nature within our current society, and how we are getting ourselves into a shitload of trouble because of our definition of how we have a relationship with nature or whatnot. But you start to see it, and people should have a background in art history. It helps contextualize. It's really fun. You can think of it as a type of time travel where you can start to pull all of these like fun, fantastical references into what you want to do.
And I think it's also like a record of how people felt about things, right? Like, cause with words you can cover it, but there's a lot of stuff that you can't. There's an experiential element, like when you watch even though it's propagandistic, you look at it like one of those like war tapestries at Palace de Versailles, and all of that shit, and you're like, oh wow, like it's like it makes it real, especially to have an artifact from that as opposed to just like being a philosophical thing or like a dry thing you read in a book.
Totally,
you know?
And I think
I obviously the Divine Comedy and shit like that would fall in the arts rather than like a historical document, right?
Yeah, but I think it's also a difference. Again, the ornateness of again Western like sort of ornamentation around war and like engagement is very different than how we have like monuments here. It's completely separated.
Well, our stuff is more obelisks and shit like that. Like it's a lot more, I never realized this, but it's not on the Colosseum, but it's near the Colosseum. There's this big fucking thing that shows you how the Roman Empire spread, right? Yeah. And it's made out of marble, and it's in part of the old part of town. It's not in like Eur, which is the Mussolini area. Sure. That it was like a marshland that he drained. That's where
oh my god, yeah, that's where you grew up in.
Yeah, I grew up. No, wild. It's fucking fascist architecture all the way, and then I grew up in stuff that was inspired by Antonio Sant'Elia, another fascist who died before the war, but like was like, you know, like he's part of the futurist movement, and like it's really cool. It was like living in a sci-fi utopia, because you had all this like ancient shit with all this like really newer stuff, but yeah, so I was like always like in awe of that like map. It's like I think it's like 4 maps, and it you know, and then I realized Mussolini made it, and I was like, oh, and it's a way, it's almost like, and it makes sense because what he wanted to do was like, people forget about fascism is that it's ultra nationalist, right? Totally. Like it's not just about fixing our country, it's about everything else. And it's really interesting, like, I am a Roma fan. So Roma, I don't know if, at one point they were going to leave the stadium. It seems like they're still at Stadio Olimpico. That's on a complex that's all built by Mussolini, by Il Duce. Yeah. And there's like mosaics of like them going into Ethiopia and like, Italy finally has its empire, you know, and it's just like, here's something that like I've been getting into, and we're gonna wrap up soon because we could keep going.
Most likely, it's fun.
Yeah. No, I'm having a lovely time. I just also don't want to. You have the rest of your day, and talking is exhausting. You'll see when you get home, you'll be a little bit tired. But yeah, like. The Divine Comedy, I've never read it. I you know, like in school they would tell you stories about like how, you know, he goes to heaven and he goes to hell, and in hell everybody has chopsticks that are too long and they can't feed each other, and then in heaven, or they can't feed themselves, and in heaven everybody has the same chopsticks but they feed each other, you know. And it's all these little like things, but I never realized how like impactful that was. And it was like a heretical text, right? That he wrote in Tuscan, which is modern day Italian, because he didn't want to write it in Latin so that it wouldn't like flag the church.
That's hilarious. Yeah.
And like when you get into all this stuff and all these like that's what I'm interested in these like you know, like the Enlightenment, Dante, all these moments where like people stop seeing the world a certain way, you know? And I feel like, it feels like we're trapped in this like thing and it's going to break at some point, you know?
Most likely.
And what's going to come is probably just going to be a repetition of something that's happened before, right? Because they're using ancient systems of control, right? Like one of the things that is really interesting about like the times of monarchy, you know, like you look at going back to like the Charles and all these like inbred people, right?
Yes.
Like
the end of a line.
that stuff, you know, there's like this, there's this argument that happens because the priest class wants to stay in control of the powerful, right? And if they are inbred and less, you know, healthy and shit like that, like look at the fucking Romanovs.
Totally.
You know, and so, you know, even with that, you have Rasputin, who like just fucking inserts himself in this, like he's just the fucking hustler. And then like, man, I've been getting into like the reasonings behind, like, you know, like I never thought of Lenin and Stalin as, or no, I never thought of Lenin and Trotsky as like part of the globalist network, right? And then now I'm learning about like Stalin was like fuck you guys.
Yeah.
Because they were like, they were subservient to like the West and all of that. And he was like from Georgia, and he actually, I mean, I'm not saying he was a good guy, but the motivations of these people, and what drives them and why they're forced into making certain decisions, like same thing with like my home country, Castro, like wants to take on the US, has a revolution. It's not communist. All of a sudden, like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, totally.
Who's going to back us?
Yeah.
And then like all these people that fought in this revolution are fucked. They get all their shit like is taken, and now they come to America. And here's another interesting idea I've had recently. Sorry to rant a little bit at the end.
Yeah.
It's like, there is no such thing as a leftist Latino. Latino is an American identity.
Yeah.
And it is people who fled socialist countries that are being overthrown through imperialism and all of that, and they live here, and by the nature of that, and not staying and not fighting in a solidarity movement, so many people do in Venezuela and all of that. I'm excluding Cuba out of this because Cuba's a little different story, but there's but like for example, I talked to Salvadoran people, and they have family back in El Salvador. They fucking love the fascism because they can live under not being extorted and all of that shit. Now, why would those conditions there in the first place? Who made them like that? The empire, the American empire. Totally. So like, this is not a judgment. This is sort of like, like philosophically, that's not leftist. Leftist is worker solidarity, fighting a bigger machine, not communism in the state-run communism like in Russia, like the true ideas of socialism that exist. Like, like right now there's the CONAI, which is the Ecuadorian indigenous groups, like hundreds of Ecuadorians and indigenous groups that are actual socialists that are fighting a neoliberal government that was installed by, or not installed because he was the vice president of, I think his name is Rafael Contreras. I could be wrong. But to me, that's also fascinating because everybody expects like the projection from Americans is that Latinos are to the left, and they don't even understand that there is no left. No, this is all of the, and that goes back to what we were talking about, the marginalization, the individualization of artist practices, and that the lack of collectiveness. I'm not saying I'm a socialist. I'm not saying any of that shit. I'm just observing. I'm a fucking guy that's gonna die.
No, definitely not. But it is interesting. It's like it comes back to this question of scale. This like what is happening right here within this neighborhood, or even my like interpersonal relationships with my family, and how is that scaling into something much larger, like a country. And that's sort of at the beautiful heart of like just like the interestingness of history. I was gonna also say what is so fascinating too, like time travel, a lot of these different governments are, again, time traveling into the past, taking this sort of nostalgic vision of what they want it to be and putting it into the future. And so there's this really interesting tension between what is the past, what is the present, and what's the future. My work, I like to think, but it's a question of sort of like, where does the responsibility of remembering history or pulling it forward actually lie?
Or reinterpreting history. Like I grew up in Miami. I bought into like all the anti-Hugo Chavez shit as a kid. I think a lot of Americans still do, I don't think that's like, I kind of wish I hadn't framed it that I grew up in Florida but like I remember when he went during the Bush administration and said that like it smelled like sulfur. And that was funny to me, but I was like, yeah, but this guy's a fucking asshole, whatever. Same thing with Gaddafi. And then you realize like these people were not evil, they just weren't subservient to America. So then we overthrow Libya. Totally. Now now one of the most advanced countries that wanted to unify all of Africa under, make the United States of Africa the same way that there's a European Union, he gets murdered and he doesn't know why. He gave up his fucking nukes. What an idiot. What a dumb, trusting asshole. That's why he deserves it. And Korea's never gonna fucking give up theirs after that. So it's just, anyway, all of this stuff is so fascinating. And it's like people just live in this like reality that Like it's that allegory of the cave thing, you know, like you start to see things and everybody thinks you're crazy because you don't have the language to translate it to them.
Sure.
You know, because you can't tell them that they're looking at a screen and the world is
sort of behind them.
Behind them. Yeah. So
no, and I would also say what you're talking about is, like, again, like very specific, like social political moments, and a lot of people don't realize even just how they're existing on a day-to-day business and how their bodies are being regulated or how they're being told to function within a society is completely serving those different moments. So it
well, here's an interesting thing that happens to me out here.
Yeah.
I'm not considered Latino. I'm considered an Arab because or a Persian.
Sure.
People read me like that, and it's very common for us. But that's because we live in a city that has as many, like, is the second biggest city outside of Tehran for Persians. Oh. You know, so that changes the context. Like, if you see me in Miami, I look like everybody there. I'm just not of an indigenous Mexican descent. Sure. So when people come from like Michigan or whatever, I always pick on Michigan, but I like Michigan. I like Detroit too. A lot of cheese. But you know, when people come from like the Midwest and they come to this country, to this city, and like the biopolitics of that are mind numbing. Yeah. Like there are entire collectives, art collectives that do not know any people of color.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And that to me is like, why did you come here?
Hopefully for the positive note of making more connections and actually believing in the ideals that they're supposedly touting. But I'll also say it's also interesting to think about how, I don't know, it's one of those things where this world, as we move into the 21st century, is going to continue moving and being very fluid, and how that happens on like an AI level and internet level, and how that happens within an actual, like, again, chemical, physical reality. And so
empirical. Like that's where postmodernism muddies all that shit up.
Yeah.
You know, it really does, because it lets people have conflicting ideas where they're like, oh, these indigenous traditions, spiritual traditions are valid, but fuck Christianity as a whole. And it's like, okay. Yeah.
It's hard to...
So you're secular or you're not?
No, yeah. What are we...
If religion and spiritual beliefs are the downfall of society, how can you have those two conflicting ideas? And that's postmodernism.
Yeah. And... yeah,
because and this is what's so, like, this is why I say you can't be a modernist now. It's so hard to understand and embody the material conditions and the spiritual beliefs, the societal beliefs. Like, right, like over here, like, what are some basic beliefs that America has? Is that America has an exceptional sense of morality and a lot of and a lot and you know, and then like, you know, people that identify one way will say, oh, the people on that side, they're patriots and they're American, they're white supremacists, and like, you are too, bro. You believe that America's got somehow morally superior, and then we end up in this like weird place where like people are like, oh, okay, well, we're still moral, but we are funding a very, very violent thing that's happening right now, and we're talking about post-colonial, like, it's just, anyway, we should end.
It's gonna get way messier.
No, and I think that's kind of why I'm interested, and I'm glad that we got to talk about a little bit about the Enlightenment, because that is one of those things that I think that that is helpful to understand how people thought of the world differently, so that you can at least see how you might be missing the point.
Yeah, and again, what was said then, we don't have. Again, unless you're an actual like researcher of that time period, I think it's fun because as an artist, you get to sort of pick and choose the things that you want to bring forward. So
I think historians do that shit too.
Oh, all the time.
I mean, it's agreed upon history. That's all it is. But within it, there's like a way of understanding yourself in the present state, and like, and just this like chauvinism of thinking that like we are so much more advanced.
Oh no! Yeah.
And I'm like, dog, have you been to the world?
That, and just like when you also see like that they were carving these like statues or like these like huge domes or archways like by hand. to be fair, through like slave and unpaid labor, but
not chattel slavery in the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
It was military capture slavery.
Yeah.
So America's sin is pretty bad.
No, 100%. It's all awful. But
you could free yourself through like, it was a different system. It's not like they're getting, like they were conquering the people. I'm not saying it's ethical, but I'm just saying like American slavery is really bad. And we don't talk at all about how much was sex trafficking.
No, we don't.
And Columbus was a fucking perv.
Yeah. It's terrible. But sorry, what was I going to say with that? But it's more the sense like there's this wonder in how they made these things. There's this magic and this sort of like alchemy and how they made these things, but they also were very knowledgeable. So I don't know. We'll see how we move into the future. We'll see if we make it to the moon.
Yeah, that is a fun one. I want to go to the moon myself.
You would? Would you be one of the first people on the moon?
I would do it, but I'm not a Freemason, so I could never.
Come on. They have to have someone there.
No, not all of them have been Freemasons, but the first men on the moon were Masons.
Sure.
Yeah.
I meant more in the sense like if we have a space colony. Or if we have like a Mars colony, would you want to be the first person?
The first person on Mars colony. Don't you remember there was that like Mars mission that was planned, and that woman was leaving like her family, and Colbert asked her like, "Yo, what's up?" And she's like, "Yeah, no, I'm
ready for it. Yeah, let me leave it behind."
I'm like, what is going on in your house, dog? Anyway, all right, we should wrap up because we could just keep going and talking mad shit. You've stimulated my brain though, so I appreciate that. And what can we promote for you? Surgeon _hands on Instagram.
At this point, I have a fun AMOCA residency coming up from April to September, but the applications for that are out. So if you have any questions, like hit me up.
Wait, what? Rephrase that.
Sorry. The American Museum of Ceramic Arts, I want to say.
Okay. Because that was the first part. I was like, a mocha?
Yeah.
Because there are several mochas.
Yes. It's a mocha. But
I thought you were saying like one of the mochas.
Yeah. So I'm excited to make a bunch of work during that residency. I have a show in San Diego called like Viewpoints of Ceramics that I'm going to be participating in. But other than that, I'm just, I don't know. I'm
reading books.
I'm resetting. I had a fantastically wonderful year. And so I'm just kind of actually ready to kind of keep making on the same like sort of trajectory. So whether or not people will see it, it could be in the desert, could be in San Diego, could be in LA. We'll see what happens. But I'm going to be there.
And you might enjoy and oh wait, why is this camera not recording all of a sudden?
No. No. Okay.
I'll find out when it cut out eventually. It's better that I cut out than you cut out.
Yeah. Oh, because I guess, the 2 point.
Yeah. So Gnostic Informant and Esoterica with Justin Sledge are some really good channels for this kind of esoterica stuff that I'm getting into, which is like all scholarly shit about what books influenced the Book of Enoch didn't get in and gets referenced. It's all really interesting stuff. It's also speculative because you can't figure it out. But anyway,
or you can't fact check it. It's just it's a text that exists, and
yeah, exactly. And you have to kind of read. That's the most fun part. Is like, there's this one guy who's I can't say his name, but he's Asian or he's Chinese in Beijing. He's a high school teacher. Gets millions of views, but he's the one that broke down the Divine Comedy for me.
Oh, right.
But all of that like really old sort of like like
important moments within
just
culture,
like early philosophical ideas. It's so far removed from our experience. Like I'm talking like pre-modernism,
Truly,
which is like modernism is still hard to grasp, It's like, I mean,
we're in it.
it seems easy to understand because the paintings are not necessarily as challenging as postmodernism, but like the actual modernist period is very hard to really, because we're subservient to that in some sense, and it's almost like a Satanist is rebelling against the Christian church. Like postmodernism is a reaction to modernism in this really weird way that kind of fucks up the world a little bit, and makes people like somehow insincere to themselves about what they think. So anyway, that we won't get into the faculty.
You might have to text me them because I'm terrible with remembering names sometimes.
Oh no, it's on the episode. You can just catch the end of it. And thank you guys for watching. We are and listening. We're really excited to keep going into the new year. I've had a nice restful break from social media and posting and looking at how your posts do. That's the worst part.
You have to do it, but it's a squeamy moment. It's like ripping a Band-Aid off. You have to do it.
And it just kind of becomes like a thing you do thoughtlessly. Like
that's good. To be removed from it.
To be removed from it. Yeah. So I stopped posting for like the end of the year on social media, and I'm like, oh yeah, this is like so much better. But hopefully I can get someone to do the posting for me, and I never have to look at it again.
You never know. Interns.
All that to say, like and subscribe, recommend texts. Tell me anything that you think is interesting about the Enlightenment that I should look into. And if you would love to make me feel really good about myself, you can donate to our Patreon at patreon.com/what's my thesis. You get your name up on the patron scroll. Cool. You get early access episodes. That's pretty much it.
That's exciting.
And you make me feel nice.
Yeah.
And it does help. It's like $65 a year, and it adds up, and it makes me feel like someone's listening. Yeah. This has gotten so sad.
No.
And no. And then we'll be back next week with another guest and another topic that may or may not be art related. Thank you so much, Liz.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you for having me.